Welcome back. We are ready for Hamlet Act V. If you recall, Ophelia lost her mind because her dad was murdered. Hamlet spurned her, and she has drowned. We found out in Act 4. She was gathering flowers by a stream, and the story that we heard was that she fell in when the branch broke, and she didn't really understand how to save herself or what the problem was, and she drowned. As Act 5 begins, we go to a cemetery, and a grave is being dug for Ophelia, and it appears that there is some controversy that perhaps it was suicide. Many people are saying it was suicide. And something you have to understand about the church at that time, particularly, if you killed yourself, I mean, this was the ultimate act of sin that you couldn't repent of. So you were not allowed to be buried in a church cemetery in sanctified ground, and you couldn't have a full-out funeral held by the church. So they're going to talk about that, and that's what they're talking about. So in the beginning of Act 5, Scene 1, we meet, it says two clowns. It doesn't mean clowns like we think. It means sort of rustic, comic relief bumpkin sort of fellows. And the first one says, is she to be buried in Christian burial when she willfully seeks her own salvation? I tell thee she is. Therefore, make her grave straight. The crowner has set on her, and he finds it a Christian burial. How can that be, unless she drowned herself in her own defense? Why, 'tis found so. It must be se offendendo. It cannot be else, for here lies the point. If I drown myself wittingly, it argues an act, and an act hath three branches. It is to act, to do, and to perform. Argal, she drowned herself wittingly. In the conversation that follows, these guys are, well, they are comic relief. And he's trying to sound very important, like a lawyer, and they're discussing the legal niceties of suicide and justice. The second one says, nay, but hear you, goodman Delver. Give me leave. Here lies the water, good. Here stands the man, good. If the man go to this water and drown himself, it is willy-nilly he goes, mark you that. But if the water come to him and drown him, he drowns not himself. Argal, he that is not guilty of his own death shortens not his own life. But is this law? Aye, marry is. Crowner's Quest law. Will you have the truth on it? If this had not been a gentlewoman, she would have been buried out of Christian burial. The second clown is a little more insightful. He says, you know what I think? I think it's not really a point of law at all. I think she's getting special perks because she's important. Why, there thou sayest it. And the more pity that great folk should have the countenance in this world to drown or hang themselves, more than they're even christened. Come, my spade. There is no ancient gentleman but gardeners, ditchers, and grave makers. They hold up Adam's profession. Was he a gentleman? Ah, was the first that ever bore arms. Why, he had none. What, art thou a heathen? How dost thou understand the scripture? The scripture says, Adam digged. Could he dig without arms? All right, it's a joke. The first time he meant Adam had no weapons. He wasn't a nobility. But the second time he makes it sound like he has no arms. If thou answerest me not to the purpose, confess thyself. Go to. What is he that builds stronger than either the mason, the shipwright, or the carpenter? The gallows maker, for that frame outlives 1,000 tenants. I like thy wit well, in good faith. The gallows does well, but how does it well? It does well to those that do ill. Now, thou dost ill to say that the gallows is built stronger than the church. Argal, the gallows may do well to thee. To it again, come. Now, that's not the answer I was looking for. Who builds stronger than a mason, a shipwright, or a carpenter? Aye, tell me that, and unyoke. Mary, now I can tell. To it. Mass, I cannot tell. Cudgel thy brains no more about it, for your dull ass will not mend his pace with beating. And when you are asked this question next, say, a grave maker. The houses he makes last till doomsday. Go, get thee in, and fetch me a stoup of liquor. He goes in. Apparently there's a dwelling somewhere, and he goes and gets a drink. And the first clown is digging the grave. And Hamlet and Horatio are approaching. Remember, Hamlet is back from England, captured by pirates, and he told Horatio to come meet him. And they're walking along, and they're passing through the cemetery. And this gravedigger is digging the grave, and he's singing. In youth, when I did love, methought it was very sweet to contract, the time for, my behove. Oh, methought there, was nothing, meet. He's grunting as he digs. Hamlet says, has this fellow no feeling of his business, that sings at grave making? Horatio says, custom hath made it in him a property of easiness. He's so used to it, he doesn't really think about the fact that he's digging someone's grave, that a dead body's going to lay here. He just sings. 'Tis e'en so. The hand of little employment hath the daintier sense. And guy keeps singing. But age with his stealing steps hath clawed me in his clutch, and hath shipped me into the land, and if I had never been such. And at this he throws his skull up. You know, somebody's been buried there before. And they're clearing it out, and he just finds a skull buried there, and he just tosses it out. Hamlet sees it, and he says, that skull had a tongue in it, and could sing once. How the knave jowls it to the ground, as if 'twere Cain's jawbone, that did the first murder. This might be the pate of a politician, which this ass now o'erreaches, one that would circumvent God, might it not? This might have been an important person once. Horatio says, it might, my lord. Or of a courtier, who could say, good morrow, sweet lord, how dost thou, sweet lord? This might be my lord such a one, that praised my lord such a one's horse, when a meant to beg it, might it not? Ay, my lord. Why, e'en so, and now my lady worms chapless, and knocked about the mazzard with a sexton's spade. Here's fine revolution, and we had the trick to see it. Did these bones cost no more the breeding, but to play at loggets with them? Mine ache to think on it. This was a human being once that somebody gave birth to and raised, and is it worth no more than to, use as a bowling ball? The guy keeps singing. A pickaxe and a spade, four in a shrouding sheet. Oh, a pit of clay for to be made for such a guest as meet. And he throws up another skull. There's another. Why, may not that be the skull of a lawyer? Where be his quiddities now, his quilities, his cases, his tenures, and his tricks? Why does he suffer this mad knave town to knock him about on the sconce with a dirty shovel, and will not tell him of his action of battery? This fellow might be in his time a great buyer of land, with his statutes, his recognizances, his fines, his double vouchers, his recoveries. Is this the fine of his fines, and the recovery of his recoveries, to have his fine pate full of fine dirt? Will his vouchers vouch him no more of his purchases, and double ones too, than the length and breadth of a pair of indentures? The very conveyance of his lands will scarcely lie in this box, and must be the inheritor himself have no more, Could this have been a lawyer? Where are all his cases? Can't he sue this guy now for tossing his skull out? No, he can't. Where is all his paperwork now? Not a jot more, my lord. Is not a parchment made of sheepskins? Aye, my lord, and of calfskins too. They are sheep and calves which seek out the assurance in that. You know, legal documents are made of sheepskin and calfskin. People who think that the whole world is summed up in those legal documents are sheep and calves. Because this is the end that all those lawyers come to. I will speak to this fellow. Whose grave is this, sirrah? Mine, sir. Oh, a pit of clay for to be made for such a guest as meet. Hamlet says, I think it be thine indeed, for thou liest in it. You lie out on it, sir, and therefore 'tis not yours. For my part, I do not lie in it, yet 'tis mine. Thou dost lie in it, to be in it, and say it is thine. They're joking on the word lie. Lie down, versus tell a lie. 'Tis for the dead, not for the quick, therefore thou liest. 'Tis a quick lie, sir, 'twill away again from me to you. What man dost thou dig it for? For no man, sir. What woman then? For none neither. Who's to be buried in it? One that was a woman, sir, but rest her soul, she's dead. Oh, Hamlet says, how absolute the knave is. We must speak by the card, or equivocation will undo us. By the Lord, Horatio, this 3 years I've taken note of it. The age is grown so picked that the toe of the peasant comes so near the heel of the courtier, he galls his kibe. He said he's noticed that peasant swarts are such upstarts that they talk back to their betters, like this guy is doing. He's very literal. How long hast thou been a grave maker? Of all the days in the year, I came to that the day that our last King Hamlet overcame Fortinbras. How long is that since? Cannot you tell that? Every fool can tell that. It was that very day that young Hamlet was born. He that is mad and sent into England. Aye, Mary, why was he sent into England? Why, because it was mad. It shall recover his wits there, or, if it do not, 'tis no great matter there. Why? 'Twill not be seen in him there. There the men are as mad as he. How came he mad? Very strangely, they say. How strangely? Faith, e'en with losing his wits. Upon what ground? Hamlet means over what matter, what caused him to lose his wits. But, of course, this guy is very literal. Hamlet says, upon what ground? Why, here in Denmark. I've been sexton here, man and boy, 30 years. How long will a man lie in the earth ere he rot? Faith, if it be not rotten before he die, as we have many pocky courses nowadays, that will scarce hold laying in. It will last you some 8 year or 9 year. A tanner will last you 9 year. Why he more than another? Why, sir, his hide is so tanned with his trade that it will keep out water a great while, and your water is a sore decayer of your whoreson dead body. He picks up a skull. Here's a skull now hath lain you in the earth 23 years. Whose was it? Whoreson mad fellow's it was. Whose do you think it was? Hamlet says, nay, I know not. A pestilence on him for a mad rogue. I poured a flagon of Rhenish on my head once. This same skull, sir, was Yorick's skull, the king's jester. This? Mean that? Let me see, says Hamlet, and he takes the skull. Alas, poor Yorick, I knew him, Horatio, a fellow of infinite jest, of most excellent fancy. He hath borne me on his back 1,000 times, and now, how abhorred in my imagination it is. My gorge rises at it. I knew this guy. He was my dad's jester. He bore me on his back. He played with me. And now he kind of makes me feel queasy just looking at this head. Here hung those lips that I have kissed I know not how oft. Where be your jibes now, your gambols, your songs, your flashes of merriment that were wont to set the table on a roar? Not one now, to mock your own grinning? Quite chapfallen? Now, get you to my lady's chamber and tell her, let her paint an inch thick. To this favor she must come. Make her laugh at that. Yorick, you go to the queen's chamber and say, no matter how much she paints her face with makeup, she's going to end up like you someday. Prithee, Horatio, tell me one thing. What's that, my lord? Dost thou think Alexander looked of this fashion in the earth? E'en so. And smelt so? Ha! E'en so, my lord. To what base uses we may return, Horatio? Why may not imagination trace the noble dust of Alexander till it find it stopping a bunghole? 'Twere to consider too curiously to consider so. No, faith, not a jot, but to follow him thither with modesty enough and likelihood to lead it. As thus, Alexander died, Alexander was buried, Alexander returneth to dust. The dust is earth, of earth we make loam. Why of that loam whereto he was converted might they not stop a beer barrel? imperious Caesar, dead and turned to clay, might stop a hole to keep the wind away. Oh, that the earth which kept the world in awe should patch a wall to expel the winter's flaw. But soft, soft a while, here comes the king. And in come the king, the queen, Laertes, Ophelia's body, and the whole procession. This is Ophelia's funeral. Remember, Hamlet does not know yet who has died. He's been away. The gravedigger never told him whose grave it was. The queen, the courtiers, who is this they follow? And with such maimed rites, in other words, not a full-out funeral. This doth betoken the course they follow did with desperate hand fordo its own life. 'Twas of some estate. Couch we a while and mark. So they're going to hide and listen in. Laertes says, what ceremony else? Hamlet says to Horatio, that's Laertes, a very noble youth, mark. What ceremony else? Her obsequies have been as far enlarged as we have warranty. Her death was doubtful, and, but that great command o'ersways the order, she should in ground unsanctified been lodged, till the last trumpet. For charitable prayers, shards, flints, and pebbles should be thrown on her. Yet here she is allowed her virgin krantz, her maiden struments, and the bringing home of bell and burial. We're giving her as much as the law is allowing. Must there no more be done? No more be done. We should profane the service of the dead to sing a requiem, and such rest to her as to peace-parted souls. Laertes says, lay her in the earth, and from her fair and unpolluted flesh may violets spring. I tell thee, churlish priest, a ministering angel shall my sister be when thou liest howling. And Hamlet now understands who it is. Laertes said, my sister. Hamlet says to Horatio, what? The fair Ophelia? The queen strews flowers in the grave, and she says, sweets to the sweet, farewell. I hoped thou shouldst have been my Hamlet's wife. I thought thy bride bed to have decked, sweet maid, and not have strewed thy grave. Oh, treble woe fall 10 times treble on that cursed head, whose wicked deed thy most ingenious sense deprived thee of. Yes, curses on Hamlet, who killed our dad and drove you crazy, Ophelia. Hold off the earth a while, till I have caught her once more in mine arms. And he jumps into the grave to give Ophelia a last hug. Now pile your dust upon the quick and the dead, till of this flat a mountain you have made to o'ertop old Pelion, or the skyish head of blue Olympus. Just bury us both together. And Hamlet, he's pushed over the edge. He comes forward. What is he whose grief bears such an emphasis, whose phrase of sorrow conjures the wandering stars and makes them stand like wonder-wounded hearers? This is I, Hamlet the Dane. Laertes, you think you're upset about Ophelia? I'm upset about Ophelia. You can just make a big show of, oh, bury us both. I'm upset too. Laertes says, the devil take thy soul, and grabs him. They're going to have a wrestling fight. Hamlet says, thou prayest not well, I prithee. Take thy fingers from my throat. For though I am not splenitive and rash, yet have I in me something dangerous, which let thy wisdom fear. Hold off thy hand. And the king says, pluck them asunder. The queen, Hamlet, Hamlet, separate them. Gentlemen! Good my lord, be quiet. And they're parted. Hamlet says, why, I will fight with him under this theme until my eyelids no longer wag. Oh, my son, what theme? I loved Ophelia. 40,000 brothers could not with all their quantity of love make up my sum. What wilt thou do for her? The king says, oh, he's mad, Laertes. Don't listen to any of this. He's crazy. For love of God, forbear him. Swoons, show me what thou'd do. Wouldst weep? Would fight? Would fast? Would tear thyself? Would drink up easel? Eat a crocodile? I'll do it. Dost thou come here to whine? To outface me with leaping in her grave? Be buried quick with her, and so will I. And if thou prate of mountains, let them throw millions of acres on us, till our ground, singeing his paint against the burning zone, make Assa like a wart. Nay, and thou'lt mouth, I'll rant as well as thou. The queen says, this is mere madness, and thus a while the fit will work on him. anon as patient as the female dove when that her golden couplets are disclosed, his silence will sit drooping. He has fits like this, Laertes. It only lasts a little while. He'll be himself again. Just bear with him. Hamlet says, "Hear you, sir. What is the reason that you use me thus?" "What, Laertes, why are you being so rude to me?" Hamlet doesn't know. The king has blamed Hamlet for everything. And they've set up a plan to get rid of Hamlet. Remember, in Act 4, Laertes thinks Hamlet is the sole cause of all the woes in his life. His dad is gone, his sister is gone, and Hamlet is to blame. Hamlet doesn't know he's being blamed like this for everything. So he doesn't understand why Laertes seems to hate him. So he says, "What is the reason you use me thus? I loved you ever. But it is no matter. Let Hercules himself do what he may. The cat will mew, and dog will have his day." The king says, I pray thee, good Horatio, wait upon him. Horatio, will you calm Hamlet down?" And they go apart. And the king says to Laertes, "Strengthen your patience in our last night's speech. We'll put the matter to a present push. Good Gertrude, set some watch over your son. This grave shall have a living monument. An hour of quiet shortly shall we see. Till then, in patience, our proceeding be." He says, this grave, Laertes, is going to have a living monument. We're going to do something for your sister. We're going to kill Hamlet. Just be patient. It's all set up. Just be patient. Okay, let's move into scene 2. Back at the castle, Hamlet and Horatio are talking. Hamlet says, "So much for this, sir. Now shall you see the other. You do remember all the circumstance?" "Remember it, my lord." "Sir, in my heart there was a kind of fighting that would not let me sleep. The circumstance is he's being taken to England. Remember, I'm on a ship. They're taking me to England." And he says, "For one night I couldn't sleep. Methought I lay worse than the mutinies in the bilboes. Rashly, and praised be rashness for it. Let us know our indiscretion sometimes serves us well, when our deep plots do pall, and that should learn us there's a divinity that shapes our ends. Rough hew them how we will." He said, "It was rash for me to get up and do what I'm going to tell you I did next, but sometimes rashness and indiscretion serves us well." Why? Because God is in charge. There's a divinity that shapes our ends. Rough hew them how we will. Horatio says, "That is most certain. Up from my cabin, my sea gown scarfed about me, in the dark groped I to find out them, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. Had my desire, fingered their packet, and in fine withdrew to mine own room again, making so bold, my fears forgetting manners, to unseal their grand commission." Remember, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern have letters. Letters that are to the King of England. Hamlet doesn't know the contents, but we know the contents because the king has let out that he put in those letters to kill Hamlet as soon as he gets to England. "Where I found, Horatio, royal knavery, an exact command, larded with many several sorts of reasons, importing Denmark's health, and England's too, with, such bugs and goblins in my life, that on the supervise, no leisure abated, no, not to stay the grinding of the axe, my head should be struck off." Is it possible? Here's the commission. Read it at more leisure. And he gives him the letter. "But wilt thou hear now how I did proceed? I beseech you. Being thus benetted round with villainies, or I could make a prologue of my brains, they had begun the play. I set me down, devised a new commission, wrote it fair. I once did hold it, as our statists do, a baseness to write fair, and laboured much how to forget that learning. But, sir, now it did me yeoman's service. Wilt thou know the effect of what I wrote? Aye, good my lord. An earnest conjuration from the king, as England was his faithful tributary, as love between them like the palm might flourish, as peace should still her wheaten garland wear, and stand a comma tween their amities, and many such like ases of great charge, that on the view and knowing of these contents, without debatement further, more or less, he should those bearers put to sudden death, not shriving time allowed." He gave him a new letter. "King, when you read this, the people who gave you the letter, execute them immediately." How was this sealed? The king had sealed it with his own signet. Well, even in this, even in that was heaven ordinate. I had my father's signet in my purse, which was the model of that Danish seal, folded the writ up in the form of the other, subscribed it, gave the impression, placed it safely, the changeling never known. Now, the next day was our sea fight, and what to this was sequent, thou knowest already. So Guildenstern and Rosencrantz go to it. So they go into their deaths. Why, man, they did make love to this employment. They are not near my conscience. Their defeat does by their own insinuation grow. It's their own faults. They're going to die, but it's their own faults. They should not have let themselves be used as pawns and spies. 'Tis dangerous when the baser nature comes between the pass and fell of incensed points of mighty opposites. Why, what a king is this? Hamlet says, does it not, think thee, stand me now upon? He that hath killed my king and whored my mother, popped in between the election and my hopes, thrown out his angle for my proper life, and with such cozenage, is not perfect conscience to quit him with this arm? And is it not to be damned to let this canker of our nature come in further evil? What do you think, Horatio? Do I not have reason to kill the king? With no qualms. The man killed my mother, killed my father, compromised my mother, tried to kill me, also came between the election and my hopes. I'm supposed to be king, and he popped in between. Horatio says, it must be shortly known to him from England what is the issue of the business there. Hamlet agrees, it will be short. The interim is mine, and a man's life's no more than to say, one. But I'm very sorry, good Horatio, that to Laertes I forgot myself, for by the image of my cause I see the portraiture of his. Laertes has a slain father as well. I'll court his favors, but sure, the bravery of his grief did put me into a towering passion. Somebody's approaching, and Horatio says, peace. Who comes here? A courtier named Osric comes in. Your lordship is right welcome back to Denmark. I humbly thank you, sir. And to Horatio says, dost know this waterfly? No, my good lord. Thy state is the more gracious, for 'tis a vice to know him. He hath much land and fertile. Let a beast be lord of beasts, and his crib shall stand at the king's mess. 'Tis a chuff, but as I say, spacious in the possession of dirt. In other words, do you know this courtier? Yeah, he's got some land, but he's a nobody otherwise. He's just an annoyance. But, if you've got cash, with the king, my uncle, that's all you need to be in the inner circle. Osric says, sweet lord, if your lordship were at leisure, I should impart a thing to you from his majesty. I will receive it, sir, with all diligence of spirit. Put your bonnet to his right use, 'tis for the head. Throughout this whole thing, he keeps wanting to put his hat back on, and Osric keeps holding it. I thank you, lordship. It is very hot. No, believe me, 'tis very cold. The wind is northerly. It is indifferent cold, my lord, indeed. But yet methinks it is very sultry and hot for my complexion. Exceedingly, my lord, it is very sultry, as 'twere, I cannot tell how. This guy agrees with anything Hamlet says. That's his instruction. It's cold. No, it's hot. Oh, yes, it's hot. No, I think it's cold. Oh, okay, it's cold. My lord, his majesty bade me signify to you that he has laid a great wager on your head. Sir, this is the matter. I beseech you, sir, remember. He wants him to put his hat back on. Nay, good my lord, for my ease and good faith. Sir, here is newly come to court Laertes. Believe me, an absolute gentleman, full of most excellent differences, of very soft society and great showing. Indeed, to speak feelingly of him, he is the card or calendar of gentry, for you shall find in him the continent of what part a gentleman would be. Osric talks in a very flowery, stuck-up sort of way. And now Hamlet's going to answer him in a flowery, stuck-up sort of way, mocking him. Sir, his definement suffers no perdition in you, though. I know to divide him inventorially would dozy the arithmetic of memory. But yet, and yet but yaw neither in respect of his quick sale. But in the verity of extolment, I take him to be a soul of great article, and his infusion of such dearth and rareness, as to make true diction of him, his semblable is his mirror, and who else would trace him, his umbrage, nothing more. Oh, your lordship speaks most infallibly of him. The consonancy, sir? Why do we wrap the gentleman in our more raw breath? Hamlet's asking in his flowery way. So why are we discussing Laertes? What's the point? But he's gotten so flowery, Osric can't follow him anymore. Sir? Horatio says, it's not possible to understand in another tongue? You will do it, sir, really. Hamlet now says flat out what he wants to know. What imports the nomination of this gentleman? Of Laertes? His purse is empty already. All his golden words are spent. Of him, sir. I know you are not ignorant. I would you did, sir. Yet in faith if you did, it would not much approve me. Well, sir? You are not ignorant of what excellence Laertes is. I dare not confess that, lest I should compare with him in excellence. But to know a man well were to know himself. I mean, sir, for his weapon. But in the imputation laid on him by them, in his meed he's unfellowed. What's his weapon? Rapier and dagger. That's two of his weapons. But, well. The king, sir, hath wagered with him 6 Barbary horses, against the which he has impawned, as I take it, 6 French rapiers and poignards, with their assigns, as girdle, hangers, and so on. 3 of the carriages, in faith, are very dear to fancy, very responsive to the hilts, most delicate carriages, and of very liberal conceits. What he's calling carriages is what we call the scabbards or the hilts. What call you the carriages? I knew you must be edified by the margent ere you had done. The carriage, sir, are the hangers. The phrase would be more germane to the matter if we could carry a cannon by our sides. A carriage is something you carry a large weapon on, like a cannon. You don't call your scabbard hanging from your belt a carriage, according to Hamlet. But on. 6 Barbary horses against 6 French swords, their signs, and 3 liberal conceited carriages. That's the French bet against the Danish. Why is this impawned, as you call it? Osric has said the king's made a bet with Laertes, these Barbary horses against all this weaponry. But Hamlet keeps interrupting him, and we don't know what the bet is on. So, Hamlet asks, why is this impawned? The king, sir, hath laid, sir, that in a 12 passes between yourself and him, he shall not exceed you 3 hits. He hath laid on 12 for 9, and it would come to the immediate trial if your lordship would vouchsafe the answer. He's bet on a fencing match. He's bet on Hamlet, that Hamlet will win, basically. In fencing, they count the number of hits. And, of course, we know what this is all about. Not only is one of the swords not going to be blunted, as for a fencing match, but it's going to be poisoned. There's also going to be a poisoned cup of wine in case Hamlet calls for a drink. And they want to know, will you take up the challenge? Hamlet says, how if I answer no? I mean, my lord, the opposition of your person in trial. Sir, I will walk here in the hall. If it please his majesty, it is the breathing time of day for me. This is my time I go out for a walk. Let the foils be brought, the gentleman willing, and the king hold his purpose. I will win for him if I can. If not, I will gain nothing but my shame and the odd hits. Shall I deliver you so? To this effect, sir, after what flourish your nature will. I commend my duty to your lordship. Yours, and Osric leaves. He does well to commend it himself. There are no tongues else for his turn. Horatio says, this lapwing runs away with a shell on his head. I did comply, sir, with his dug before I sucked it. Thus has he, and many more of the same breed that I know the drossy age dotes on, only got the tune of the time, and out of a habit of encounter, a kind of yesty collection, which carries them through and through the most fanned and winnowed opinions, and do but blow them to their trial, the bubbles are out. That's all is to say that this is the fashion of our silly time for people to talk this way and not be straightforward. Enter another lord. My lord, his majesty commended him to you by young Osric, who brings back to him that you attend him in the hall. He sends to know if your pleasure hold to play with Laertes, or that you will take longer time. I'm constant to my purposes. They follow the king's pleasure. If his fitness speaks, mine is ready, now or whensoever, provided I be so able as now. The lord says, well, the king and queen and all are coming down in happy time. The queen desires you to use some gentle entertainment to Laertes before you fall to play. The queen says, say something nice to Laertes. Don't be nasty to him. Kind of make it up, that whole scene in the graveyard. Say something nice. Hamlet says, she well instructs me. And the lord leaves. Horatio says, you will lose, my lord. I do not think so. Since he went into France, I have been in continual practice. I shall win at the odds. But thou wouldst not think how ill all's here about my heart. But it is no matter. Nay, good my lord, it is but foolery, but it is such a kind of gain-giving as would perhaps trouble a woman. He says, no, I think I'm good enough fencer to beat Laertes, but there is something ill in my heart. And he said, it's a little thing. Like I'm just not, I'm uneasy. It's the sort of thing that might trouble a woman, but I'm not going to let it trouble me. Horatio says, if your mind dislike anything, obey it. I will forestall their repair hither and say you are not fit. We can put this off to another time. If there's anything about this that's giving you pause. Hamlet says, not a whit. We defy augury. There is special providence in the fall of a sparrow. If it be now, 'tis not to come. If it be not to come, it will be now. If it be not now, yet it will come. The readiness is all. Since no man of aught he leaves knows what it is to leave betimes, let be. When our death comes, it will come at the right time. The readiness is all. If what I feel unease about is true, there's a providence in the fall of a sparrow. I'm not going to worry about it. All right. A table is prepared, trumpets blow, everybody comes in for the big fencing match. The king says, come, Hamlet, come, and take this hand from me. And he puts Laertes' hand into Hamlet's. And Hamlet says, give me your pardon, sir. I have done you wrong, but pardon it, as you are a gentleman. This presence knows, and you must needs have heard, how I am punished with a sore distraction. What I have done that might your nature, honor, and exception roughly awake, I here proclaim was madness. Was Hamlet wronged, Laertes? Never Hamlet. If Hamlet from himself be taken away, and when he's not himself does wrong Laertes, then Hamlet does it not. Hamlet denies it. Who does it then? His madness. If it be so, Hamlet is of the faction that is wronged. His madness is poor Hamlet's enemy. Sir, in this audience, let my disclaiming from a purposed evil free me so far in your most generous thoughts that I have shot my arrow o'er the house and hurt my brother. Laertes says, I am satisfied in nature, whose motive in this case should stir me most to my revenge. But in my terms of honor I stand aloof, and will know reconcilement till by some elder masters of known honor I have a voice and precedent of peace to keep my name ungored. All right, right now I'm satisfied with your apology. I accept it. But I'm not going to be buddy-buddy with you till my dad's death is investigated and we find out more about the situation. But for now, I'll accept your apology. But till that time, I do receive your offered love, like love, and will not wrong it. Which is not true. I embrace it freely, and will this brother's wager frankly play. Come, give us the foils, come on. Come, one for me. I'll be your foil, Laertes. In mine ignorance, your skill shall, like a star in the darkest night, stick fiery off indeed. Oh, yeah, I'll be your foil. Foils are what they call the swords, but the foil is also something that sets off the excellence of something else. And he says, I'm going to be your foil. In other words, that you're such a good fencer, I'm going to set off your excellence. And Laertes apparently thinks he's He's making fun of him. You mock me, sir. No, by this hand. Give them the foils, young Osric. Cousin Hamlet, you know the wager? Very well, my lord. Your grace has laid the odds on the weaker side. I do not fear it. I've seen you both. But since he is bettered, we have therefore odds. Laertes says, this is too heavy. Let me see another. And he exchanges his for another. He picked one, while Hamlet's there. But he says, oh, this one's too heavy. Let me see another. He's picking the one that's sharp and poisoned. Hamlet says, this likes me well. These foils have all a length? Aye, my good lord, they're all the same. They're all the same. The king says, set me the stoups of wine upon that table. If Hamlet give the first or second hit, or quit in answer of the third exchange, let all the battlements their ordnance fire. The king shall drink to Hamlet's better health, and in the cup an onion shall he throw. It's a pearl. Richer than that which 4 successive kings in Denmark's crown have worn. Give me the cups, and let the kettle to the trumpet speak, the trumpet to the cannoneer without, the cannons to the heavens, the earth to heaven. Now the king drinks to Hamlet. Come, begin. So if Hamlet gets the first or second hit, I'm going to drink to Hamlet, and then trumpets are going to blow, and the cannoneers outside are going to hear, and they're going to blow the cannons off and say, the king is drinking. And you, the judges, bear a wary eye. Hamlet says, come on, sir. Come, my lord. And now, this is all, they're fencing. They're counting the hits. 1, no. Judgment, a hit, a very palpable hit. And the drums and trumpets go off because Hamlet got a hit. Well, again, stay, give me a drink. Hamlet, this pearl is thine. And he throws a pearl in Hamlet's cup and drinks. I think the idea is there are 2 cups. Here's the king's cup, Hamlet's cup. He drinks, he throws a pearl. It never says it in the play, I don't think, but I suspect the pearl is poisoned. This is how he's putting the poison in the cup. Here's to thy health. Give him the cup. I'll play this bout first. Set it by a while. No, I'm not thirsty yet. Come. And they play. Another hit. What say you? A touch. I do confess it. The king says, our son shall win. The queen says, he's fat and scant of breath. She doesn't mean he's fat. She means he's out of shape. Here, Hamlet, take my napkin. Rub thy brows. The queen carouses to thy fortune, Hamlet. The queen carouses to thy fortune. She picks up his cup. Says, here, Hamlet, wipe your brow. Oh, I'm going to drink to you, Hamlet. Hamlet says, good madam. The king says, Gertrude, do not drink. I will, my lord. I pray you pardon me. And she drinks. And the king mutters under his breath, it is the poison cup. It is too late. Hamlet says, I dare not drink yet, madam. By and by. Come, let me wipe thy face. Laertes says to the king, my lord, I'll hit him now. Laertes hasn't got a hit in yet with his poison dagger. I do not think it. Laertes, aside, he says, and yet it is almost against my conscience. Laertes having second thoughts about it. Maybe Hamlet's not such a bad guy after all. Come, for the third, Laertes. You do but dally. I pray you, pass with your best violence. I am afeard you make a wanton of me. Are you letting me win? Say you so? Come on. Nothing either way. Have at you now. Laertes wounds Hamlet. Then in scuffling, they change rapiers. And Hamlet wounds Laertes. The king says, part them. They're incensed. Nay, come again. Hamlet's all fired up now. The queen falls. Osric says, look to the queen there. Ho! Horatio's looking at Laertes and Hamlet. They bleed on both sides. How is it, my lord? How is it, Laertes? Why, as a woodcock to mine own springe, Osric, I am justly killed with mine own treachery. Hamlet says, well, how does the queen? What's wrong with the queen? She swoons to see them bleed. No, no, says the queen, the drink, the drink. Oh, my dear Hamlet, the drink, the drink. I am poisoned. Hamlet says, oh, Villainy! Oh, let the door be locked. Treachery! Seek it out. And Laertes now falls. Laertes has been poisoned too. It is here, Hamlet. Where's the treachery? It is here, says Laertes. Hamlet, thou art slain. No medicine in the world can do thee good. In thee there is not half an hour's life. The treacherous instrument is in thy hand, unbaited and envenomed. The foul practice hath turned itself on me. Lo, here I lie, never to rise again. Thy mother's poisoned. I can no more. The king's to blame. The point envenomed too? Then venom to thy work. And he stabs the king with the poisoned sword. Everyone screams, treason, treason, because he's murdering the king. The king says, oh, yet defend me, friends. I am but hurt. Here, thou incestuous, murderous, damned Dane. And now he forces him to drink the poison cup. Drink off this potion. Is thy onion here? Follow my mother. And the king dies. Laertes says, he is justly served. It is a poison tempered by himself. Exchange forgiveness with me, noble Hamlet. Mine and my father's death come not upon thee, nor thine on me. And he dies. And Hamlet says, heaven make thee free of it. I follow thee. I am dead, Horatio. Wretched queen, adieu. You that look pale and tremble at this chance, that are but mutes or audience to this act, had I but time, as this fell sergeant Death is strict in his arrest. Oh, I could tell you, but let it be. So all you people who are looking on, everyone else watching the fencing match has no idea what's going on. They have no idea that the king killed the previous king, his brother. They have no idea that he poisoned the cup. They have no idea that Hamlet's been after him. They have no idea that the sword was poisoned. And this was set up with, they don't know anything. All they see is just people dropping dead one by one. And the king has just been murdered, it seems, in front of their eyes. And Hamlet says, if I had time, I could tell you a story. But death is a very strict sergeant arresting people. He doesn't give them time. Horatio, I am dead. Thou livest. Report me and my cause aright to the unsatisfied. Horatio, you're going to have to explain this to everyone. Never believe it. I am more an antique Roman than a Dane. Here's yet some liquor left. I am more like a Roman who commits suicide when things look bad, and he tries to drink from the poisoned cup, and Hamlet stops him. As thou art a man, give me the cup. Let go. By heaven, I'll have it. Oh God, Horatio, what a wounded name, things standing thus unknown, shall I leave behind me? If you die and you're the only one who knows the truth, Horatio, what are people going to think about me? If thou didst ever hold me in thy heart, absent thee from felicity a while. In other words, keep living for a while. And in this harsh world draw thy breath in pain to tell my story. And they hear marching of soldiers far off, and a volley, a cannon, and trumpets. What warlike noise is this? Osric says, young Fortinbras, with conquest come from Poland, to the ambassadors of England gives this warlike volley. Oh, I die, Horatio. This potent poison quite o'ercrows my spirit. I cannot live to hear the news from England, but I do prophesy the election lights on Fortinbras. He has my dying voice. So, let me stop there and explain. So Fortinbras and his army is coming back from Poland. Also, the ambassadors have come from England to report that the king's instructions have been followed. And Hamlet says, I can't live to hear the news from England, what they have to say, what happened when they got to England. But I prophesy that the election lights on Fortinbras. Who's going to be king now in Denmark? Young Fortinbras, who was kind of a hothead at the beginning. He seems like a solid sort. He's probably won in Poland, and maybe he should take over the government here as well. So tell him, with the occurrence more or less which have solicited, the rest is silence. And he dies. Horatio says, now cracks a noble heart. Good night, sweet prince, and flights of angels sing thee to thy rest. What does the drum come hither? And Fortinbras comes in with the ambassadors. Fortinbras says, "Where is this sight? What is it you would see? If aught of woe or wonder, cease your search." "This quarry cries on havoc. There's a bunch of dead bodies everywhere. It looks like something really bad happened. O proud death, what feast is toward in thine eternal cell, that thou so many princes as at a shot so bloodily hath struck?" The first ambassador from England says, "The sight is dismal, and our affairs from England come too late. The ears are senseless that should give us hearing, to tell him his commandment is fulfilled, that Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead. Where should we have our thanks?" Horatio says, "Not from his mouth had it the ability of life to thank you. He never gave commandment for their death." They're saying, who's here to thank us for following his instructions? Well, the king wouldn't have thanked you if he'd been alive, because that's not what he wanted you to do. "But since, so jump upon this bloody question, you from the Polack wars, and you from England, are here arrived, give order that these bodies high on a stage be placed to the view, and let me speak to the yet unknowing world how these things came about. So shall you hear of carnal, bloody, and unnatural acts, of accidental judgments, casual slaughters, of deaths put on by cunning and forced cause, and in this upshot, purposes mistook, fallen on the inventors' heads. All this can I truly deliver." Fortinbras says, "Let us haste to hear it, and call the noblest to the audience. For me, with sorrow I embrace my fortune. I have some rights of memory in this kingdom, which now to claim my vantage doth invite me. I have some claim to the throne of Denmark, and it looks like maybe it's time for me to put that claim forward." Horatio says, "Of that I shall have also cause to speak, and from his mouth whose voice will draw on more. But let this same be presently performed, even while men's minds are wild, lest more mischance on plots and errors happen." We need to announce to everybody what's happened before something worse happens, before there's a general uprising. "Let 4 captains bear Hamlet, like a soldier, to the stage, for he was likely, had he been put on, to have proved most royal. And for his passage, the soldiers' music and the rite of war speak loudly for him. Take up the bodies. Such a sight as this becomes the field, but here shows much amiss. Go, bid the soldiers shoot." And they march off, carrying the bodies with a peal of ordnance, like a gun salute for the dead. And that is the end of Hamlet. I'll see you in class and we'll talk about it.